welcome to another Photo Mishmash. I'm Christina.
And I'm Toby.
And this is episode 56.
Welcome back to another Photo Mishmash. For those who are wondering what this show is all about, the title is fairly self-explanatory. We take the week's photo news, some discussions, some tips, some tricks. We're going to throw in a little raw doctor tonight as well. We mishmash it all together, and we sit here and chat about it with you all, either live or after the fact. Thanks for joining us. I'm Toby, professional wedding photographer, and I didn't mean to say wedding photographer. I don't call myself a wedding photographer.
No, you do a little bit of everything, don't you?
I do a little bit of everything. Professional photographer and educator. Christina, who are you?
I am a professional wedding photographer. I'm a full-time photographer and also an educator. And we are glad that you could join us. If you want to follow us on Instagram, follow our screen names. Is that what they call it these days? Username. Our usernames.
Yeah. Just follow us.
Screen below. Yes.
Yep. We're getting serious stream warnings again.
Well, let's just go with that.
Okay. Let's see what people are saying.
So, let's move on to talking about our sponsor today, Adorama Pics.
That's right. We have a coupon code for you, and your use of that will both save you 50% off a photo book 10 by 10. Now, technically, it is only the first 10 pages of that photo book, but that's enough for a full book because you can put multiple images on each. Last episode, I showed you just how easy it is to create a book. Somebody in the comments asked, I showed dragging from Flickr the images, but you can bring them over from SmugMug, Google+, lots of different sources, plus your own computer, and build a book right there inside their system. Very easy to do, very friendly, and I think it's a little late for the Mother's Day presents, but
yeah, definitely is.
Give Mom a nice card and say, I have something special coming for you. And a photo book. An IOU photo book. And we thank Adorama Pics for their support, and your use of that code supports us. Thank you.
Yep. And now let's move on to In Case You Missed It.
In case you missed it. So we've had a pretty busy week, and thanks to you for your support. You've come on with a producer role title. She used that today in email. Just producer Christina says, but I think you all saw the.
You gotta fake it like you make till you make it, not
That's
like
good.
you make it. You gotta
like,
fake it till you make it.
Yeah, it's true. It's what most people do. The Sigma 24 review went out this week.
Yes.
And that was a newer style of review that we are hoping to do more of in the future. I think it worked out really well.
I think you guys liked it.
Yep. And so if you haven't seen that, go watch the Sigma 24 f1.4. It's a great lens. This review was a little funny because I think it's not quite what people expected, but it put it up, comparing this $850 lens against the $150 lens. Well, of course you know which one is going to win. Or do you? I mean, it really kind of depends on your needs. Not everybody needs or wants to carry around that heavy glass. There are advantages to it, but there are certainly advantages to the $150 lens as well. So we talk about those. It's kind of a common question I get. Why is this lens so much more? Doesn't it do the same? And the other common question that we get, and I think was a confusion, and I actually saw it just a day or so later, is that whole one was made for EF, and 24 millimeter for EF. When I put it on a crop, does that mean I don't apply the crop or I do? Or this one, the little pancake, which is out of reach, is only for crop sensors. So I must not have to apply the crop factor. No, strangely, you do.
Yeah.
So they both are the same focal length, even though one is made for full frame, which also works on crop, and one is made for crop only.
Yeah, so go ahead and watch the video if you haven't already. We are really looking forward to bringing some more of that your way. We also have a giveaway going on, which will be over on.
It's right at the top corner of the screen, but there is, I think, did I get some of the more appropriate ones? No, I want to move over some of our sponsors, and the others will be there shortly. Yes, one of the things that's being given away is a Faisal tripod, and I just kind of want to highlight this for a second. It's not this exact one. You're getting one with a center column, but we have this in the office for reviewing, and every time we pick it up, I am amazed at least I am, speak for myself, I think you said similar things last night though, how light it is.
It's so
This
light.
is carbon fiber construction with these really nice leg locks that just work really well.
One of the nicest tripods. It's the nicest tripod we have. I mean, just based on the weight. I think that is such a huge deal. I mean, it makes the difference whether or not you're going to bring your tripod out on a shoot or not. And I think that, you know, when you do get to bring your tripod out or you bring it on the field, you get much more solid shots. So I think it is really important that you have a really lightweight tripod, and this one is incredibly lightweight. Yeah.
I'm getting bad sync messages. We're really out of sync with audio. That's annoying because they're coming in on the same channel now. We've made changes to the audio system mostly because we have a broken lav mic that's being repaired, and also in exploring options of making this better.
Weird. Okay. Well. And we're back, everybody. Thank you for hanging in there.
We're hanging in there too, trying to figure this out.
Yeah. We can't guarantee that the audio is not going to go out of sync again, but we're going to do our,
as far as we can make out, it's on the YouTube side with this streaming. We're having some, bandwidth reports, yet when we test bandwidth on our end, everything is very good. Rock solid, in fact, as it's been for many shows. But in the last couple of shows, we've had these hiccups that do seem to be possibly bandwidth related. I've been in talks with the Wirecast folks that we use, been in talk with some other experts, so we're working on this.
Yeah. So let's get back. Where were we before we left off? Oh, we were talking about the Faisal tripod, which is really, really nice.
Yes.
And very lightweight.
And you can win one.
And you can win one.
Not that exact one.
Okay. By entering the giveaway, which ends on Friday. So go to photorec.tv and look for more information on how to enter the giveaway. You may have also noticed, we talked about it last week, so you definitely noticed if you were watching, but we released the last episode in our Lightroom series, episode 9, where we go through portrait retouching and editing, and you can't buy each episode for the special price of $2.49, but you can buy the entire series for $24.99 if you haven't bought them already. Now would be the time to do so. It's going to be that special price of $24.99 until the end of May. So
that's right.
You haven't.
I get you. Let's go over briefly what that gets you. 9 episodes. If you go to shop for 8, it's there's now a spider. The 8 is a bonus, comes along with the others. So 9 full episodes of content, taking you up from the install process to setting up for success, kind of like trying to figure it all out, how it should work so that you're using it efficiently, and hand over to you with some editing, back to me for some power tools, making Lightroom do the work for you.
And it includes a collection of presets that you can use on your photos to help get you started. So yeah, check it out if you want. Photorec.tv/shop.
That's right. And Patreon supporters do get immediate access to all of those for just $3 a month.
Starting at $3.
Starting at $3 a month. That's right.
So, in case you missed it this week, we also had a post on photorec.tv about McKay Photography Academy. As you know, they have some really exciting trips lined up. One upcoming trip is to Greece. We are both attending that trip.
That's right.
Also to New Zealand in February of next year, January to February of next year. We're also going to that trip, and we're really, really excited about it.
The itinerary came out today, and I didn't get a chance to read through all of it, but it is just a tour of just fantastic locations. There are still some spots available, so you can join us in New Zealand on this trip. We're going to that little hobbit town that they used in the movies.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You're kidding.
No. And then all of these amazing places that I can't remember the names of any of them right now, but the mountains, the boat tour up through that narrow valley, the fjords of, I'm just going to say they're fjords of New Zealand.
And possibly even more exciting, they're going to Tanzania. And we are hoping that we can go on that trip as well. It'll have to be, we're trying to figure out our schedule.
Yeah.
But if your dream has been to photograph in an African safari, photograph wild animals, then this is the trip for you. Definitely check them out at McKayLive.com and let them know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can switch over to... Yep. Let them know we sent you if you do get in touch with them.
Now, just say a little bit more about Tanzania, because it is just an absolutely fantastic experience that they had, and that now they're going to take this knowledge and take you on an even better tour next year. David did a really nice write-up today of his experience using the Tamron 150 to 600. That was one of the lenses I used in my big zoom review. And I just scroll down. Here he is in the safari vehicle. But I just give you an idea of some of the shots that he got, and that I've seen some of the other ones, the participants. It's basically all of the classic African safari type shots. The hippos, the lions. This shot of the lion out in the field with a wind-blown mane, just amazing. So close to elephants, the wildebeests. The trip that they have going next year is going to be just a little bit different. They're going to go up to the river where they have the huge wildebeest crossing, and the crocodiles snatch them out of the water, straight out of National Geographic. So absolutely fantastic. Go check them out. There's a link right below this video in the show notes to learn more, or click the little card icon to see the show notes and learn more.
Yep. And if you're enjoying this broadcast, yes.
Oh, or us.
You just need to.
Okay.
Just let go of it.
Trust.
Just let go of it.
Is the audio working? Yes, okay.
If you're enjoying this episode, please give us a thumbs up, even though we are doing a really good job of being awkward.
Mm-hmm.
But it helps tell other people that you are enjoying the content. And yeah, thank you for that. Now moving on to news.
What do we want to start with news-wise? We got a lot of different things. What do I have a list on the... Well, if we skip anything, we'll forget and go back and never circle around back for it. So DP Review had a great article this week that shed some light on noise. And they're going to break this into a multi-part article, or there's going to be follow-up articles. But I really thought that this was interesting. It's a very long, quite technical article, so if you're interested in that kind of thing, you should read it. But what I thought was interesting is the summary basically is exposed to the right. As we've been talking about, somebody asked what that was a few episodes ago, and we talked about the benefits of getting a little bit more dynamic range. Their analogy of why that helps, though, was really interesting. Take the idea of having a bundle of test tubes, and it's raining. And you stick the test tubes out into the rain, and then you pull them back very quickly. And if you looked at the amount of water that has fallen into the test tubes, it's probably going to be very uneven. Because in that short period of time, you could have gotten 1 or 2 drops in one, maybe no drops in another. And so it's random and noticeable, the differences. Mm-hmm. But if you stick it out there for a longer time, the law of average means all of those test tubes are going to come to about the same level, and you pull it back. So that they're equating to noise. You get just in these kind of, I don't want to say shorter exposures, but underexposed, you have a little bit more randomness as far as the exposure, and you see that as noise. That's part of where noise is coming from. That's not the whole story. And one of the solutions for many sensors is to expose a little bit to the right, so you're sticking the test tubes out there a little bit longer, so it all averages up.
Yep. And that's why, cool. We have been advocating for this for a very long time. I mean, for over a year, if not, since we started doing this podcast, is if you are taking a picture and you're concerned about noise problems because it's a low light situation, you want to expose to the right, make sure your picture is properly exposed, and you can even prioritize or dial up your ISO without sacrificing image quality if you need to maybe, stop down in aperture or stop down in your shutter speed. Because it's much easier. Well, one, you'll get less noise if you have a properly exposed picture, but also it's much easier to correct noise in post-production than it is to correct handshake. I mean, it's nearly impossible. It's impossible to correct handshake.
Yep.
So...
Well, but Roger was excited that he found that blur correction tool in Photoshop this week. which, you know, it's not quite there, but it can correct for a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, I agree with Christina. It's basically impossible to correct for blur.
Well, you want to minimize the amount of post-production you have to do.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Sure.
so,
Right.
yeah, so next article that we want to talk about is, actually it's not an article, it's a Twitter update, it's a tweet you made this.
It is. Can we show this real quick?
Sure.
Because it's important to show my Twitter. As I was putting together the T6s review, and we'll talk about that soon here, I was cross-referencing the manual, going back and forth, and I came across this little tidbit in the Canon manual. I just think it's funny. That's all. This is an actual quote from the manual. Your subject will look softer and more dainty. I can't even remember exactly what it applied to. I think it applied to one of the scene effects, portraiture probably. Dainty. Are you offended by the use of that word?
No.
Okay. I'm a little offended by that.
You're offended by the use of the word dainty?
Dainty.
Okay. Explain.
I don't want somebody taking a picture of me where I look dainty.
Alright, I see what you're saying.
Okay, moving on. We can move on.
It's just not the appropriate term to use to refer to a human, you know? Like, I can see...
What is dainty?
Jewelry. Like,
Jewelry. Pinkies?
Jewelry can be dainty. I don't even know if pinky... I mean, I guess it can kind of be dainty. I don't know.
Moving on to more news about Canon is we have rumors, and these seem to be fact. We're going to get a Canon 50mm f1.8 STM lens. Can we show folks this? This is an upgrade to that nifty 50. So it's going to have a metal mount. It's going to be that STM technology, which means that really silent and smooth autofocus that we've seen on the kit lenses and the other prime lenses. I have to say this looks really exciting. People are wondering about the price. You know, the 24 and the 40 were both $149. Actually, I think technically they're supposed to be $199, but they've almost always been discounted at $149. They're good quality lenses, those pancakes, and I suspect that this will be a nice quality as well. They can't make it too good though, because then the 50 f1.4 starts to look a little tired and old. So it'll be curious to see just how good it is, and also how many aperture blades it has. The nerds start to discuss that, because the more aperture blades, the smoother the bokeh usually. And that 50 f1.8, I think it's got 5 or 7 pentagon, right? You get pentagon little bokeh blurs. So that's a downside of it, some folks say. But also some things, you could think of it as slightly endearing as well.
Also from Canon rumors, there is a mail-in rebate currently, or new mail-in rebates. So if you have been wanting to buy a new piece of Canon gear, you should check these out.
That's right. Excuse me. We got $100 price drops on a lot of popular lenses. This is on top of those recent Canon price drops. Last until May, I think you said that. I suspect, I keep saying this, I've been surprised that they've kind of done different rebates over and over the spring. I think this should be it until we go into the fall, because the summer really is when a lot of people are buying lenses that they realize they can get out and start shooting, or they're booking more gigs and things of that sort. So we might see ones extended to June, but I would be surprised. So it's a good time to buy if you're considering some of these lenses. I tell you, the 1635 f4, that was a nice lens, nice and wide. Now remember, crop sensor folks, it's really not that much wider than your 18, but for full frame, it's a nice walk-around lens. That was part of my ultra-wide lens review, which actually isn't finished yet. I have to finish editing that, but that's kind of my all-around pick out of that category.
Yep. And next on the list is, so you may have heard about this. This actually, I heard about it first from Lens Rental's blog.
Right.
And it is basically dust spots on the Canon T6s sensor.
Yeah, not just on, but sandwiched in under the glass. So not something you can say, hey, somebody clean this for me, but something where it seems like the sensor needs to be replaced. Now, Lens Rental, if you don't know, is an excellent lens and gear rental place. I love their blog posts. Roger there takes apart stuff all the time, or at least convinces the techs to. and then talks about it and just really does a nice job of writing this up. One of the benefits they have is they get a lot of gear in, and so they can sometimes see patterns that other people might miss. They found this. I have inspected my T6s sensor and can report that it is clean, so it's not one of the affected ones. It's hard to say how many were affected. It was, I think they had about 50% of them. 4 of the Canon T6s's and 2 of the Canon T6i's. That's about 10 copies of each. Okay, so 40% and 20%. So pretty significant numbers, but not 50%.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see if Canon makes any kind of public announcement. It almost seems like
there were so many that had that issue that it seems like they might. But then maybe it was just a one batch.
But one batch, I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with manufacturing technology to know, does one batch of T6s's mean 100,000 cameras that rolled off the assembly line, or 5,000, or 10,000? I mean, a fairly popular Rebel series like this, I would suspect, they make a good number. They expect it to sell well. Canon Rebels usually do sell fairly well.
Well, but have you heard from anybody else having experienced this or seeing this?
No, one I think imagingresources.com has talked about finding it in one of their models as well. That's the only other place I've seen it. Everybody else is just referencing this lens rental article.
Okay.
So, or the imaging resource article. So again, that's enough that it's clearly more than just one camera that was affected. Does this mean that I say right now don't buy? I might wait if you're not desperate. I might wait and see if Canon says something, or if.
But if it's not a widespread issue, I don't think anybody needs to wait. If you really want, if you've been waiting to get your hands on it, I mean, I would just jump on the opportunity to order it because currently it's sold out.
That's true. It is. It does.
So.
Yeah, it does seem like stock is low in some places. One of the things you can do is just buy it. Look closely at the sensor as soon as you get it, and if it's bad, return it and ask for another one.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hassle, but you can do it. Again, mine's fine. I ordered it regular like everybody else from B&H.
Yeah. So I mean, and if you did have the issue, it's not like Canon's gonna say, "Oh no, we're not gonna replace the sensor for you," even though it's not a big deal.
Right.
You'd be without a camera for a little while, which is a bummer, but okay, so last article for our news section for today is kind of a cute article.
Oh,
I'm waiting
cute.
for Toby to put it
pull
on
it
the
up?
screen
Okay.
so I can,
Star Wars themed photo shoot to find homes for shelter animals. So it's always kind of these nice feel good stories. So this week was May 4th. As many people like to say, may the 4th be with you, and Star Wars Day. And so somebody got the idea of getting people to dress up as Star Wars characters and pose with animals from the local shelter, kind of to help them go viral, since we're talking about it right now. And then as a result, hopefully get adopted.
Oh, that is so cute. Look at that little kitty.
Yeah, how happy do you think that cat is being hugged
Probably not very happy,
by
but
a stormtrooper?
It looks pretty adorable still.
Do you think
I would adopt him.
Well, I know you would. Christina came home the other day and pretended like she had brought home a new animal. I was not so happy. Oh, look at that little guy right there. He's kind of cute too.
I wanted to do this with our local shelter, but they were like too good for it. They were like, "No, we don't need anybody to take pictures."
You wanted to do Star Wars themed pictures?
Not Star Wars themed, but there's a photographer that I follow on Facebook called the Photographer, and
So clever.
He's very popular on Facebook. And he goes around to shelters in the Bay Area and takes really nice pictures of the animals that are up for adoption, which really improves their chance. I mean, if you have really nice pictures, it's like with anything, anything that you're promoting. If you have really strong imagery to promote it, there's a higher chance that somebody will want it. So I approached my local Humane Society to see if they were interested, and they shot me down. So that was kind of a bummer.
Right.
But
it was a bummer.
It was.
You really just wanted to cuddle with the kittens.
Yeah, it probably was a good thing in the end.
We would have more kittens.
Yeah,
right.
probably.
Okay. All right.
So let's move on to our discussion for today.
Yes.
And our discussion today is a little bit about plagiarism, a little bit about what is inspiration, what is imitation, and where is the line between drawing inspiration from somebody else's work
Right.
and copying somebody else's work.
Yep. And this discussion started a few weeks ago when I was looking at my Instagram and following an account called Animals.
Yeah, it was like just at animals.
At Animals.
Yeah.
And posting just beautiful animal pictures. And I quickly noticed that, all of the pictures were credited to somebody else. Sometimes linked, sometimes not. And I thought, okay, this account is kind of aggregating these things. That's fine. And then one day, a pop-up in my feed from Animals, an advertisement for some little product, some kind of animal-related product, like some furry kitten keychain or something like that. And I thought, all right, so this aggregator is taking these other people's work, crediting them, not always linking, hot linking or whatever we want to call it, sometimes just writing their name, and they're probably not asking permission. I'd be really surprised if they were asking permission, because some of the pictures I realized, one was from National Geographic. I don't think National Geographic is going to be like, oh yeah, sure, take our top tiger picture and reshare it. And they actually, in that case, credited the photographer, not National Geographic. And, well, I don't know what is right there. But then I started going through the feed and realizing that about every, 6th or 7th picture would be an advertisement. So clearly somebody who was running this account was making money off of this. And they were followed by a huge number of people. It was one of the bigger Instagram accounts that I knew of. Hundreds of thousands of followers. And so
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands, yeah. We were talking about that today, and then I was like, well, I'll show people on the podcast. And I went back to look for it, and it's gone. Completely gone. So I think I'm not the only one that had an issue with that. You can kind of tell. I had an issue with that. And I'm curious what you all think. If your work was taken someplace else and you were credited, how would you feel? And remember, live folks, if you've got a really salient point, take time to put it over in the comments so that it sticks around our chat, goes away at the end of the live show. I think your answer would change greatly if you were not credited. If somebody took your work and just put it on an Instagram account without any credit at all, you'd be unhappy. But what if they credited and linked back to your Instagram account? How would you feel? And you asked me that earlier today. You were like, how would you feel? And I said, it's a real mixed bag. The increased exposure would probably be nice, and since it's just an easy click through, I'm sure I would pick up some followers from that. But without asking me first,
I'd probably be a little bit turned off by that.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? If you're on the chat, we'd love to hear some of your thoughts.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, if you had the opportunity. So there's a hypothetical Instagram account that has, let's say, 250,000 followers, okay? And they have taken one of your pictures that they thought was great and reposted it. They have credited you, so, people who see that picture can go to your own Instagram account. How would you feel about that if they're also doing this for profit? Like maybe the next post after yours is going to be a for-profit post. Are you okay with that? Would you just really appreciate the exposure? And then also, we didn't talk about this earlier, but what does it do to, how does it affect the value of photography if anybody is just willing to give up their pictures for exposure? Like exposure, if you're an aspiring professional photographer, exposure isn't gonna, it's not really, I mean, people think that it's worth a ton, but really, it doesn't pay your bills. It doesn't allow you to continue to pursue your career. If you're a hobbyist and you just do it for fun, then maybe that would be cool. But if you're a working photographer, I mean, exposure, it depends. It would have to be very specific to the type of photography that you're doing, and you would have to be able to see direct benefits from it, I think.
You just reminded me of this very funny post. Can you switch over here for a second?
Sure.
That I saw. This is just a couple of days ago. I don't know if you saw this or not. We didn't talk about it. Exposure now legal tender for photographers. A change in the law will allow photographers to pay rent on their home and studios with exposure instead of money. They'll also be able to buy coffee, shampoo, and other essentials by mentioning to the checkout assistant that they did a big job last week for nothing and hoping it will bring them home some paying clients. So that's it. We can go back to this real discussion. But I think that is valid point because of what you just said.
Yeah.
You know, if we're just all hoping for exposure, at what point do we say, okay, I need to start charging? And I tell you what, it's very scary to, you know, turn that knob up and say, my time is worth this much of money or X amount of dollars.
Yeah. Trevor says, next time you read an annual report, let me know if you see an exposure line in the financial section.
Right.
And some people they wouldn't mind to get the exposure, and then some people do agree as well that they would not want to be a part of that.
And even if you are not going to, and this is where I think it gets funny, you know, let's say I put up a picture that somebody takes on Instagram and reshares. I'm not directly making any money off of Instagram. I don't really feel like I'm losing dollars there. But at the same time, just because I'm not making money off of that doesn't mean it's right for that person to take it without asking. If they ask, that's a whole different story. Then I can decide, sure, hear it, or no, I'd rather not share that with you for whatever reason.
Yeah, so now, you know, this is our question of the week. Should Instagram accounts or just content publishing, social media, just, you know, people who start businesses or social media accounts, should they be allowed to just be content aggregators and not create any new content of their own if it brings people exposure? Does your answer change if they are doing it for profit? That was kind of a long question, but
that was. Can we talk about Joel Robertson for a minute?
Yes. So that is the second part of our discussion. This is an article by photographer Joel Robertson who creates. He does
surrealist, conceptual
self-portraiture, and he's really extremely talented. He's, you know, he's got lots of really intricate sort of scenes that also are, you know, they're very artistic. They have lots of meaning behind them. They really make you think. And
if I start to show some, we start to see the discussion here.
Yeah, so this blog post is about his work being imitated.
Right.
Or, you know, two different photographers who took and...
I'll leave it on this little slideshow. Go ahead.
And recreated them by taking original pictures. So this photographer who took inspiration from this photographer Joel Robertson, he recreated new pictures and then composited them all into photos that looked almost exactly like Joel's pictures. So
you basically remade these pictures from scratch.
Right, from scratch, but using original photos from scratch.
Okay.
But they're the same concept that Joel created.
So, you know, the question becomes, I think it's pretty clear here, this is blatant copying, and...
Well, is it blatant copying? You're getting a little ahead of...
Am I?
Yes.
Okay. Did you want to say something before I say it's blatant copying?
Well, the second photographer...
Yes.
Okay, the second photographer, instead of creating photos from scratch, just took Joel's pictures, photoshopped Joel out, and photoshopped himself into the pictures.
So this is blatant copying times 10.
Right. So let me pose you all this question. Which is one worse than the other, or is one better than the other?
Did I spoil it because I gave my opinion so forcefully?
Well, not really. I mean, people can still
have an opinion different than mine.
Yeah, so, I mean, is there a difference between what these two photographers are doing? Even if one of them created the photos from scratch, is it not the same thing? And I had some questions written out.
Okay. Well, while you bring those questions up, let me talk about this for a minute. I think, as a person who's trying to learn photography and learn compositing, what that first person did was an awesome learning experience for them. They said, here are these amazing images this guy has created. Let me see if I can make my own. And he did. The problem was the point at which he made them, he then decided to share them out to the world and not say anything about this other person existing. Like, I got inspiration from this person, or I was trying to recreate this person's work. He just put them up there like he had come up with them on their own. And I think that, it's bad.
So we're going to pause.
Glad you guys are both patient and can keep yourselves entertained in the chat room as we turn things off and back on.
It's become a game of turning things off and back on.
At this point, if somebody said, here's $1,000, buy what you need to make it right, that's the problem. Everybody's got, well.
All right. Well, we were talking about our discussion of this week, which is, you know, plagiarism, and really how far is too far when it comes to drawing inspiration from somebody's work.
Right.
And
I think it is absolutely fine to draw inspiration from somebody's work and to try to achieve a certain look that is similar to somebody else's. But if you're publishing it, then you should give them credit. Or in the case of the first guy, who really just kind of recreated shot for shot, why not take it a step further, sir, and just make it your own with your own idea?
So here's the question here's the question we have for you. How is it possible to draw inspiration from somebody's work without copying, and how can you do this? How can somebody draw inspiration from an artist they admire without stealing their idea? So if you guys want to chime in on the chat, that would be awesome. We'll talk about some of your responses. But I think,
What do you think?
You look at, for example, Joel's work, and you can enjoy it, like it, sort of analyze it for its meaning, and then sort of try to build on that maybe. Think about ways where you can take this idea a step above instead of just copying the idea. I should also mention that this was not just about plagiarism, this was also about accountability. Both times Joel contacted these photographers, the first one completely denied copying his work.
He said, "I never seen your work."
Yeah. Even though there are 5 to 10 pictures that are identical to Joel's pictures.
Right.
And then the other one was oh yeah, I copied, he acknowledged that he did, but he was why can't you just let me have my fun, basically. That's,
Right.
essentially what he said. Why can't you just let me, I'm just doing it for fun to show my friends and to give my friends a good laugh.
Again, this guy Joel wasn't selling these pictures per se, but, it was part of his portfolio that people came across and made him stand out as a certain type of photographer that they wanted to hire. And so with derivative works out there, it does hurt his business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think I saw somebody in the chat room say, and, especially here in America, the answer is sue them. But I have to say that's a very messy solution often, because you got to spend money to go to court, and, copyright cases, Joel would probably win in both these cases. But what exactly, again, how could he prove the amount of damages? And then, these are just some dudes that he's going to sue. Doesn't mean that he's going to get $1 million that are going to cover his court fees and all of that stuff as well.
Yeah. No.
So it's just messy. Don't do it.
Yeah, so one of the things that we were discussing earlier is one of the ways to sort of combat this is to spread awareness. So first of all, obviously we know that none of you guys that are watching this are going to do it because you're better than that. But to take it a step further, you should probably educate the people around you to not do it, and talk about it, and maybe share these experiences, because I feel like some people just might not realize, there's blatant copying, and then there's ignorance. And I think a lot of these different cases of plagiarism can be combated by just educating people on the matter. So talking about it, I think, is a pretty good solution to the problem.
All right. Did you ask all the questions you wanted to ask?
I believe I did.
Yeah. Okay. And that brings up, and I see Darren here saying he didn't watermark his work. Now, this is one of the first things that Christina and I talked about when we were talking about this earlier today. As And let me tell you, that's one of the really frustrating things. We prepare for this show, we feel like we get good content, and then we got technical difficulties that just punch us in the head.
We were so excited about the show. We still are, but...
Well, yeah. First thing we said is, well, you know, would it be better to watermark? Now, in the case, you pointed out very quickly...
Yeah, Darren Hines says he didn't watermark his work.
That's right. Yeah, I said
oh, did you?
You know, in the case of the second guy who photoshopped himself in, clearly his skills were good enough to Photoshop him in. He could also Photoshop watermarks out.
Yeah.
So watermarks can help.
And, yeah.
But they certainly, they don't, they're not the answer.
No, and also, I mean, if you're putting a watermark on your work, you're also, I mean, you're changing the visual aesthetic of it by just placing a watermark on it. So you are changing the composition, you're changing the feel of the photo, you're changing the focal point. I mean, you alter the photo significantly by adding a watermark. So you can watermark your work, but, you know, a lot of the times, unless the watermark is very, very subtle, the work doesn't really stand out as much.
Right.
So, and when it is subtle, you know, the drawback to that is that it's easily photoshoppable.
Yeah.
So
it's a
tricky
dilemma.
situation.
It's a dilemma. I rarely watermark my pictures, only if I'm putting them up and selling them to a client, like doing, sometimes I've done jobs for free and then I make the money on the print sales. I make sure that those are watermarked, because otherwise what many people do is they just take a copy and put it up as a profile picture. Janine asked a great question. In weddings, specifically to you, copying somebody's, or copying a bride's pose that somebody else might have done. How do you decide, you know, whether you're copying or taking inspiration from?
Yeah, well, ideally you are putting your own spin on it, but if the photo does look really similar, the thing with photo or wedding photography these days is that there is a lot of the same thing everywhere. I mean, I subscribe to lots of wedding blogs, wedding photographers, wedding stylists, wedding industry, like in all of my social media, which I should probably unsubscribe because I'm just bombarded with wedding imagery and I'm a little tired of it. But, well, just
That's okay.
all of the,
just keep going.
It's just all over the place.
Quick before we get out of sync again.
But, yeah, I mean, so how, you know, if somebody did copy a picture, maybe it's just a little too similar. I'm sure that other person drew it from somebody else and that person from somebody else. And you know, I think that's the thing about art, is that no artwork is original. And we had that discussion before about going out and just creating. And I believe you had a quote about...
Not waiting for inspiration to strike?
Yeah. Or something about not worrying if you're copying people's work, because no piece of work, no work of art is truly original. So yes and no. I mean, you ideally, again, want to draw or want to create something new, but at the same time,
right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's not plagiarism, but
I want to know. This makes me think. I'm a little goofy. This makes me think. Who's the first person to come up with the idea in the town of Pisa to look like they're holding Pisa up and somebody take a picture? Somebody was the first. How long ago was it? Can you all find the first holding up the, you know what I'm talking about? And now that's been done in a lot of different ways where people like hold the Washington Monument or like hold their hands out, use perspective.
That's not cheesy at all.
Okay. We good with that?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, let me just look at the chat and see.
Well, while you're looking at the chat, I want to talk about Instagram some more. We teased this last week, and I'm excited to announce it now. We're going to be doing weekly challenges or themes on Instagram. And there'll be a post from me very soon. Maybe Christina even could put the graphic back up so you know my Instagram. There'll also be a post on photorec.tv about it. Basically, each week, me or somebody is going to come up with a theme. It's going to happen on Wednesday, and you have until the following week to tag your images with a hashtag appropriate for that theme. The one that I pick, or we might get big enough that there's a small group of people helping to pick, will get reposted and shared out on Facebook as well.
And hashtag.
Fame without the fortune.
Hashtag PRTV too.
Yes, hashtag PRTV. The very first, here I'll announce the very first week contest or theme or challenge, not really a contest, can't win much other than fame, is uniquely flowers, or flowers unique. I tried to make this the monthly challenge, and Christina was like, no. But here's what I want. I don't want go find some strange flower, those weird orchids that look like crazy sex organs. I want you to do a photo of flowers that is unique.
Think outside the box.
Outside the petals, if you were.
And we don't mean a unique flower.
I said
we
that.
mean a photo that is unique. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to reiterate it.
You weren't listening when I said the orchids thing?
No.
Oh, gosh. So, you got a week. Hashtag PRTV, plus there's going to be an additional hashtag for this theme, something like...
So, Melinda
flower
says
uniqueness.
first you have to teach some of us Instagram. So,
Okay.
how do we fix that?
Well, when...
Maybe we'll make a video saying how to...
While
Well, to
we're
create
traveling?
an Instagram
Okay.
account, you have to have a smartphone,
A mobile device.
a mobile device.
Mm-hmm.
And you download the app, and you log in with Facebook, and that's it.
That's right.
And then you follow us. So, again, I can bring this
You don't
back.
have to follow us. Technically, you don't have to follow us for this contest. I want to make that clear.
You don't. Yeah, you don't.
You just have to use the
But you can if
hashtag
you
so
want.
that we can find. Now, one of the things that I didn't jump on the Instagram bandwagon at first. It just kind of felt, I don't know. Well, I always didn't have a good camera phone for one. Oh, speaking of that, I think I will be able to get the LG G4 in here for review soon. But, what was I saying? Okay, you want to search my channel for Instagram, and I'll put all of this into the one post that gets shared out. Instagram, Dropbox, Lightroom workflow, because there is a pretty painless way to get your images from Lightroom onto Instagram, so you don't have to be shooting with just your mobile phone. Though some people are purists and feel like since it's a mobile app, they should only do that, and they do. And if you want to do that, totally fine. But if you want to use pictures taken with cameras other than the one in your camera, in your phone, then you can do that as well. So we'll put all this together in a post, but start thinking about how you can take a unique picture of a flower. And I'll be reminding folks on Instagram and posts other places that I've said. Now,
Yeah.
Can we talk about the T6s a little bit?
No, we already talked about it.
We didn't.
We didn't?
No, not at
Why
all.
wasn't that in the news?
Because we had technical difficulties and then we came back to it.
Well, we have to do Raw Doctor, so
Let's skip Raw Doctor and talk about T6s.
we're gonna skip the Raw Doctor.
We're going to skip the Raw Doctor this week. Sorry,
Okay.
folks. Technical issues, I keep bumping this with an elbow. So a lot of people are waiting to hear about the T6s. It's interesting. I've had more requests about this camera than anything else I've ever had in, which is interesting. Part of the buzz, I think, is the fact that we finally have a new sensor in here. This is a real upgrade. The T4i to T5i, that wasn't a real upgrade. That was simply to get rid of the non-STM 18 to 55 kit lens that was sold with the T4i. We've been using this for the last week, solid. The review is filmed and will be out soon. I hope within the next 3 to 4 days is what I hope. But we got a lot of editing to do. It's a nice camera. It's certainly an upgrade from the T5i. Autofocus, it's got a bigger coverage spread there. The live view autofocusing system and video autofocusing system is improved. It's not at the level of the 70D, and so a lot of people are saying this camera looks a lot like the 70D. It's similar in size and shape and weight, and the fact that it's got a top LCD now, it's got the rear dial, but truthfully, it is not the 70D. The 70D still offers some clear advantages and some disadvantages. Clear advantages on the 70D side is much better battery life. I have to say, despite the fact that Canon has gone to a slightly bigger body, and I think I know why. Nikon, they've gone to a slightly smaller body with their D5500, but Canon has gone slightly bigger, and I believe it is to create more of a gap between this camera and the SL2 that will be coming sometime later this year, I suspect. The SL1 has sold well, I expected it will have a follow-up. I saw rumors post about it the other day, and I believe they want to create a differentiation and say, here, if you want a little SLR from Canon, here's this. If you want a little bit bigger SLR from Canon, here's this. But my complaint was battery life. We're at about 440 shots per charge. It died on us when we were filming part of the review last night.
Battery life is terrible.
And, you know, I used to say one of the big advantages of going with a DSLR over a mirrorless was battery life. But you look over at the Sony a6000, it offers just about the same shots per charge, and you can charge it from a little USB battery bit. Always out of reach. And you can't do that with a Canon, although it is the nicer charger without the stupid cord. So, battery life is certainly a bummer versus the 70D. And the 70D still offers that dual pixel autofocus, which is faster and smoother, especially with non-STM lenses, but I've been impressed with the video focusing speeds. How about the image quality? Despite the fact that we've moved up to a 24 megapixel sensor, which is bigger than the 70Ds, so what is it, at 20 I think, or 22? I can't remember exactly. The image quality looks almost identical. Very, very similar. Low light performance, almost identical. We can get into pixel peeping and say, well, maybe it's a third of a stop better, but the truth is, it's basically almost identical in day-to-day shooting. So whether or not that's a disappointment for you, or you're excited because you have the 70D and you're like, yes, this camera isn't better. But, well, let me go through some of those other 70D benefits real quick again. So that was body, battery life, pentaprism viewfinder, bigger, brighter viewfinder, faster top shutter speed, faster flash sync speed, 7 frames a second versus 30 frames a second here, and battery life. I'm repeating myself, but that is key. Now, the disadvantage of the 70D is it is a bigger, heavier camera. I hear from people from time to time who came to me a year ago or a couple of months ago, bought a DSLR, and now they're like, well, can you also recommend a point and shoot for when we just go out? Because they don't want to carry around a big camera. I know that doesn't apply to all of you, but you should consider that. The 70D is noticeably heavier and a little bit bulkier. So if that means you might leave it at home at some time, then it's probably not better, and the T6s would be better for you. Sacrifice some of that battery life. Spare batteries are easy, fairly cheap, third party. So I enjoy using it, and I want to reiterate that it has that kind of nice Canon feel and friendliness. Rear dial is fantastic that it has that, so it's like all of the big brother 70D and 5D Mark IIIs, and this thing here too. If you've got an older Rebel that you've been hanging on to for a while, this represents a nice upgrade. Also has Wi-Fi. It's good Wi-Fi, and it'll allow you to send videos over. I haven't heard anybody say that. I was really surprised the other night. It was showing me the little thumbnails of the files on the camera on my phone, and I was like, oh, I'll just press video, see what happens. It just started sending it over. You can't control video from this, but you can send video clips to your phone. Okay? What does that sign mean? Wrap it up?
Wrap it up.
Well, that's my thoughts.
We spent a ton of time working on this review.
You're going to get a full review, but I do want to reward those people that take the time to watch and suffer through all these blips of this show with a little bit of... They could have been
rewarded with the Raw Doctor.
With a little... I'm sorry, Christina. With a little meat of a discussion about this. So if you put it up against the D5500, better low light quality, much better battery life. Even though Nikon went to that much smaller, they're being very frugal with their battery usage or their energy usage in that camera, and it has almost double the shots. Some people won't like that smaller size and that ergonomics, and some people don't care for the colors straight out of the Nikon. Some people feel like the Canon colors are just a little bit better. We like them. But, you know, a quick tweak in Lightroom, and they all can look beautiful. And I'll tell you, the D5500 high ISO images are impressive. And it doesn't have the optical low pass filter either. It is a sharp little camera. It is an excellent value. But back to this for a second, nobody else in the DSLR world offers the smooth autofocus during video and live view that you get with these STM lenses. Nobody else does.
Yeah.
If that's important to you, this is a great camera for you.
Yeah.
And the kit lens, I think we...
It's too much.
It's too much, she says.
It's too much. You guys, you have to watch the review. It's going to be awesome. And, you know, if you watch this, I don't know why they want to watch the review because you basically said everything.
No, I go detail point by point about
just
everything.
Did just that.
How about the anti-flicker technology that's built into here? Hey,
Okay,
that's pretty
we
cool.
have about 13 minutes now
To answer some questions?
to answer some questions.
Reader question. Do we have a little slide for reader questions?
We don't.
This is the part where I start to get giddy.
We will next week, though.
All right.
If you stop talking. So right now we're going to take your questions. If you have some questions, Roy is going to be looking through the chat. We're going to be looking through the chat as well and trying to answer them as best as we can. So ask away.
Well,
we're going to start with some questions that we already have.
I got the first question, and that is, do I put filters on the ends of my lenses to protect them?
Not
Never.
for protection.
Never, ever, ever do I do that. Get a lens hood. Get a lens hood. It offers more protection without adding any silly glass between you and your subject. The only time I use filters is to achieve a special effect, like the polarizer to get a deeper blue skies, saturate. Also, I use it as a poor man's neutral density filter. That's what I used for years when I didn't really feel like I could justify buying a neutral density filter. The circular polarizer cuts a nice amount of light and helps you get those blurry water pictures that I like to take. Lens hoods, no UV filters. Anybody who tells you a UV filter is helpful is trying to sell you a UV filter and make money off of it.
Yeah, I mean, especially, camera stores will sell you a UV filter. I worked at a camera store, and they sold UV filters. I never sold anybody a UV filter because, I think less so with the entry-level lenses, but more so with the higher-end lenses. But if you really, you already said this, if you want to protect your camera, just put a lens hood on. And I have experienced times when I've dropped my lenses, my really, really expensive Canon lenses, and the lens hood has completely absorbed the shock from the fall.
Yep.
And lens completely intact. Now, I dropped it like 5 more times after that, and then didn't hold up as well, but But for the first few times,
there's only so much a lens hood can do.
Yeah,
You keep throwing it on the ground.
Well, I wouldn't say
Okay.
threw it on the ground. But, so don't get a lens hood instead.
Yep.
P. Dinko wants to know, is that Sigma 18 to 35 really all that?
It is really all that.
That's very sassy.
Here's the downside to that lens. It is somewhat limiting. It's an 18 to 35 range. That's not a big range. But within that range, it gives you fantastically sharp images, really wide aperture. f1.8, not even f2.8. It blows my mind a little bit. My review of that lens was very positive. It's lovely. I'd love to have it around again. Use it on the GH4. Use it on the GH4 would be lovely. It really is all of that. As I said, somewhat limited range. It's heavy, and of course it is pricey. Yep.
Next question is from Pico Bully. Hey guys, what are the parameters as far as filters? Or do you just want the raw images for the Instagram challenge? For the flower Instagram?
You know what? That's totally up to you. I have to say, personally, 95% of what I put on Instagram, I do not apply any of the Instagram filters. I have done my editing in Lightroom.
Yeah, but you can apply any filters, whether in Lightroom or Instagram or Visco or Afterlight or whatever.
That's right.
Makes your heart happy.
Yeah. And so I think I see other questions that have gotten in here about T6s versus 70D. I think I answered those. Certainly leave a comment if you want to discuss it more, but my full review is coming soon.
Eric has a kind of interesting and somewhat broad question. Are there any real recent evolutions for cameras? Anything really innovative besides the Nikon D90 being the first DSLR with HD video? So actually, that reminds me of
That's a good question.
Jill, our friend Jill.
Yep.
And her significant other is a filmmaker who has just been getting into photography, just trying out a new medium. And his digital camera of choice is that Sigma, that weird looking
It's the DP Quattro
Sigma
is what he
camera.
has. You want to switch over to
Yeah.
VSEC and I'll show a picture of it. I've always been curious to kind of review this and spend some real time with it. It is an odd looking duck. It does not sell well, but what I hear from the people that own it is they absolutely love it. The big difference here, and this isn't really that new, but it uses a different type of sensor. Very different than all of the other cameras. It's really this Foveon sensor, which is a stack each layer is capturing a different wavelength of light, and you're supposed to get incredibly rich and detailed images. However, due to the design of the sensor, you can come back to us, the downside is low light performance. It's pretty terrible in low light performance. So yeah, I don't know if we can point to this as being a real innovation since it's not something that's being widely adopted. It's a great question, and nothing is jumping right to mind. I mean, the first thing that I can say is, we've seen some really nice improvements in image quality. These current high-end crop sensor cameras, I'm going to put the D5500 in that list, D7200, the NX1. These crop sensors are creating gorgeous images, even in low light, at very high ISOs. 5 years ago, when the D90 came out, is that about 5? Maybe even 6 or 7. 800 ISO was incredibly cringeworthy noisy, and now we're shooting really much higher. Oh, that reminds the Sony A7S going to a 12 megapixel sensor that can basically see in the dark. That's got to be on the list.
NYC, this is somewhat related. NYC0053 asks, at present, do you think, or what do you think are the GH4 low light activity? So how does the GH4 do in low light?
It's decent. Again, I think it gets a hard time. A lot of people want to compare the GH4 to the Sony A7S at the same time because they both were, came out at kind of similar times and both capable of 4K, although the GH4 does it in camera. It certainly, with that smaller sensor, gets noisy at lower light. I've shot at 800 and 1600 ISO with it and been very happy with the quality. Above that, it certainly gets noisy. Too noisy that I'm comfortable using it in most circumstances fast. But just the general quality out of this camera, the battery life, it's fantastic. I wouldn't buy it primarily for stills, though, because that's not its strength.
Yeah.
Strength really is these. I posted on Facebook.
But you can draw killer stills from the video.
Yeah, the shot I posted on Facebook last night that Christina had taken over my shoulder of me shooting with the T6s, that is nothing special. That was just a video. I opened it up in VLC and took a screenshot of it. And it is, I think it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. So really nice. A lot of fun to work with that. Nothing bad about the Sony A7S, but detail-wise, straight out of the camera, being able to shoot 4K, it's nice. It's a nice price, too.
Pico Bully asks if the Sigma DP2 shoots video. Does it shoot video?
I don't know.
Should we find out?
I'm sort of interested. Record button there.
I'm sort of interested.
I know. I've been talking to the Sigma guys recently about getting stuff directly from them, and I'm curious to ask about this. This camera has been out for a while. I think it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does because there seems to be some samples.
It would make sense. I mean, I would.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Is anybody making new DSLRs, or new cameras, new digital cameras that don't have video functionality? I feel like that would just be a step back.
Well, the Nikon DF.
And I guess, does the Pentax, my dream camera, the Pentax
I don't think it does.
645Z,
No,
does it have?
no.
Yeah, it probably does.
Oh, but that reminds me of the digital video zoom in here. 3x lossless quality. Full HD still at 3x. You put a nice zoom lens on here. Let's say you pick up the 55 to 250. First you got to apply the crop factor. You get a lot closer, and then you apply that 3x zoom. For video only, you get a lot closer to your subjects at still full HD quality. Make sure you're on a rock-solid tripod. But yeah. So, where are you trying to go right now?
I was trying to go to Facebook to see if there are any questions there.
Oh, I have Facebook right here.
Okay. So
and I can ask.
Maybe you pull them out.
I'll pull out any questions.
P. Denko asks, is the schedule still Wednesday at 5:30, or is it going to change? So we've been doing this broadcast every Wednesday at 6 Eastern Standard Time. So that's going to be the schedule, Wednesday at 6. Yep. And if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, we usually send out reminders before the the broadcast is live. So go ahead and head on over to photorec.tv. Maybe check out the giveaway if you haven't. You can win some really cool stuff. A slider from Nebo.
Which we also have been
awesome
using for shooting video.
Yes.
It's not just for time-lapse.
Yeah, and subscribe to the newsletter and then you'll get updates.
That's right. Yep. The only question we have on Facebook right now, we haven't already answered, well actually we've answered this one too, is lens filters that are marked as protectors. Are they any good? Even the ones marketed as having virtually no light loss. Here's the thing though, they're going to build up smudge. It's just another layer. I guess you could argue that if you have it on the end of your lens will never get any smudgier. So it's really not additional smudge. But, you know, it's just another surface. I've seen them catch light a little bit more frequently and sometimes create this kind of ghost reflection in certain circumstances. It's just the protection isn't there. Lens hood.
Does the 5S, the Canon 5DS do video? The 5DS?
They do. They just, it's, you know, flatline. And that's, oh, another thing. You know, limited to 1080 at 30 frames per second. No 60. No full HD as many people call it. Whereas we got that on Nikon. We've got that from the mirrorless cameras. Come on, Canon. Step up 60 frames a second for our video. Honestly, I never use 60 frames a second. So why am I calling for it? Because it puts this camera on a level footing with everybody else.
Yeah.
And
I feel like it's not like we're asking for 120p.
Right.
You know,
and actually, truthfully, I have for fun, like jumping into the water, shoot at 60p, and then you can slow it down. I mean, that's really why you want to shoot at 60p, to be able to have it slow it down a little bit or to capture faster action without as much blurring. But, you know, Canon continues to say, 30 is all we giving you. And I have to say, if we extrapolate from this, I don't think the 5D Mark IV will have 4K.
P. Dinko wants to know what the newsletter link is. So head on over to photorec.tv. I can actually put that up on the screen. Photorec.tv. You should be able to find the link to sign up for the newsletter and enter the awesome giveaway. That's our blog, our website.
That's right.
Yeah, and we have no more questions. So we've reached the end of the show. We're just gonna hang out for a few minutes. So if you wanna, this is the after show.
I think we should leave while it's still in sync.
Yeah, I do feel a little bit scarred by that.
Yeah, I am definitely scarred by that. Well, I'll talk a little bit about our setup here and just share it. So we're shooting with a GH4, which has absolutely fantastic battery life. We're doing HDMI out. It's capable of 4K HDMI out. We bring that into a computer and run Wirecast. Wirecast is a program kind of stamped with approval by YouTube. They even make a specific YouTube version that then can communicate directly to YouTube and send this content up. Now, prior to what audio we're running today, we were running 2 lav mics into a little USB mixer and bringing that in separately. So those things were separate. But, you know, we were having different glitches, and then in trying to figure all of this out, we ended up realizing that one of the lav mics was starting to go bad. I don't think any of the previous glitches were responsible from that going bad lav, but we thought, let's send it in and get it fixed. They are fixing it under warranty. I just got that message today.
Oh, great.
And you know, we had out of sync issues at times. So then we said, well, let's try to bring audio directly into the GH4. We don't have a way to do that with our XLR mics right now. The little US audio mixer creates a lot of feedback. The thing I'd like to try next is the Tascam DR60. So we have audio going directly into the mixer from a little boom mic sitting down here. Tried to deaden the room as much as we can. I know there's a lot more room noise. And this is going to the GH4, and then HDMI is sending both the video and audio signal.
And we thought
in
that
sync.
By simplifying, so before we had our audio input into the computer separately from the GH4, so we thought that by having it go directly into the GH4 in a single output from the GH4 into the computer, that would simplify and maybe even eliminate all of our audio problems. And we did testing. We tested this for a very long time, and as it turns out, it goes out of sync. So why does it do that?
It didn't while we were testing.
I have no idea.
Truthfully, we never tested for longer than like 15 to 20 minutes at a time,
I guess so.
and it seems like it gets out of sync.
So is that what we're supposed to do? We're just supposed to leave it running all day?
Well, that's why I did that metronome the other day. I recorded a metronome for like half an hour with a different setup, and then watched and skipped forward. Is it still in sync? Click, click. Yep, it's still in sync. So I don't know. I suspect that the out of sync issue happens as it's going up to YouTube if there's little bandwidth blips. I think it sacrifices something. I'd love to be able to talk to somebody at YouTube more about this. I have a YouTube contact person. But she wasn't so helpful last time I asked. I should ask her again and poke this and say, look, we're trying to do this good live show, and we have some technical difficulties. Can I have some engineer's ear for a minute? The trouble is, and one of the other things we did is we stopped, using Wi-Fi. We are wired to the router directly. Mm-hmm. Our bandwidth is plenty fast enough, both up and down, to take this show.
And sometimes it just says that it isn't. So yeah. Why does that? Why does it? And so we think it might be also on YouTube's end. In conclusion, it's just we have been trying to bring you the best quality possible. We are really trying.
We appreciate your patience.
We've decided we're not going to talk about it anymore because the more we talk about it,
talk about it sometimes.
Okay. Well, so here's
it's okay. You don't have to go
on. No. I'm gonna go on. So off the record, kind of, but not really off the record. On the record.
We got 2 good questions.
Okay, but let me just say my little spiel here. So we want to focus on creating content because we know that that's ultimately what's going to bring you back. We want to take care of the quality of the technical quality of this podcast, but at the same time not to the extent that it sacrifices content. So I found that we started to do these podcasts, and we were focused so much on getting it right on the technical side that we weren't really thinking too much about content. And thankfully we have the help of our intern Scott and of Roy, who help us find articles and come up with things to talk about, but we weren't prepared so much on the content aspect of things. And so we're not really going to entertain audio questions as much anymore. We're not really going to entertain
you mean like feedback where people are like, here's what you should do.
We appreciate the feedback that we get from our viewers. It helps us make the podcast better. But at the same time, we are dealing with some issues that, we know are happening. We know we're getting these issues and we're working on them. And no amount of feedback is really... And it comes to the point where some of the feedback it discourages us a little bit. And it can bring... I mean, some of it is helpful feedback and then some of it is just... So anyway, in short, I just want to make a point to let you guys know that we want to focus on content. And if you have a question about cameras and about photography and about having a photography business or learning to take better pictures, then go ahead and ask those. If you have audio comments, video comments, we ask that maybe you don't ask as many of those anymore. I mean,
share those, right? And I completely understand frustration. Imagine my frustration in the time that we spend putting the show together, and then are stymied by technical difficulties. And if you want to take a break from watching until we can put up a big sign that says it's going to be perfect, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to do that, but I certainly would like to get to a point where I feel like things aren't randomly inconsistent. So we'll see. Couple good questions about what lens hoods to get. This is one of those times where I almost always recommend the actual brand for your camera. Third-party lens hoods, many of them use the lens filters to screw on. Not all of them, but many of them. And that's terrible because they're not quick on and off and trying to put them in your bag and things like that. They just get in the way. So go ahead and spend a little bit more on the Canon brand. They're going to pop on so nicely, lock into place many of the times, and then come off very easily as well, or come off when you unlock them. So, and then as far as what size to get, again, I've got a post over on my page. I'll put this link down in the show notes as well. Recommended lens hoods for most Canon lenses. Just if you look at the end of the lens, or actually what you do, just Google Canon lens hood for the name of your lens, and the one that is Canon brand would be the best to buy.
Yeah.
If you can tell that it's not using the threads, third party are okay. We own one of those third party non-thread ones. It locks on all right.
Yeah.
That's because its lens. Some of the higher end lenses, the lens hoods are like $80.
Yeah, I know.
That's a little ridiculous, Canon.
It's really ridiculous.
So in that case, I did find a third party that has been working fine.
Yeah. Oakville. No, wait. That was just a question.
Yes.
Okay, P. Dinko. You're asking lots of questions today, P. Dinko. He wants to know major in photography or just intern instead?
We've talked about this before. What I
Yes.
wish remember what could tell you which episode to go watch.
Well, I think you should try out. So I didn't major. I majored in fine art in college, but I didn't major in photography in particular. And I'm not saying that you should do exactly what I am doing, but you need to consider your financials. You need to consider how serious you are about photography, and if there are interning opportunities, that is an excellent, excellent way to learn and to become a better photographer. If you can find a photographer that you admire and approach them for an internship opportunity or a job opportunity, I would definitely suggest doing that while you can, or if you can. Here's what I would advise that you say if you are looking for an internship is I would try to approach it from the perspective of what you can do to help them. Because I do hear from some people, not that ask me necessarily, but I've heard from other people that will contact photographers and say, I want to get experience, can I intern for you? And you want to make it sound like you're really interested in helping that person, because that person is very busy, that person has business to maintain, so while they might be happy to help you and to teach you, at the same time you have to also be valuable to their business. So approach it from sort of that perspective. And if you feel like you would benefit from formal instruction in a classroom, then I might consider majoring in photography in college. There's also websites like Creative Live that have lots and lots of courses on photography. There's a lot of resources on the internet. If you're serious about photography, that might be a route that you want to go on. But for me, I feel like you're going to learn most of this stuff on the field. It's good to have, a knowledge of the basics, but definitely try to get as much hands-on experience as possible. And that was the last question.
Okay. I think this is a place to wrap up. Thank you so much for sticking around. People in the comments. Look out for that Instagram post coming just a few moments. And what else? Go enter the giveaway if you haven't already, and share out that giveaway. Sell out your friends so that you get better chances of winning. And on that note, thanks for watching. See you next week.
See you next week at 6.
Stop stream.